Ayman Khan here for Seconds Out with the victorious Shane McGuigan guiding Chris Billam-Smith to his world title win against Lawrence Okolie. Shane, I'll just give you the word and the feeling that you feel guiding Chris to that world title.
Yeah, I mean, I'd said it in the post-fight presser. I genuinely believe it's the proudest moment of my coaching career. I've had some amazingly huge nights. And I've got George Groves here, I've got Luke Campbell here. I've had some amazing nights with them. But this has to top it, you know, from where Chris started on non-televised small shows, no international amateur experience, not on GB, kept going up there for the trials. And then, yeah, being used as a sparring partner early on in my working relationship with George Groves and David Hay did some rounds with him. But the fact that he kept coming back, and it was always at the end of a phone call, Chris, look, we struggle with sparring, can you come down? Not a problem, what time? And he would just turn up. He wasn't winning any rounds, to be honest, but he was game as anything and keen to learn. 43 amateur fights, 31 wins, no stoppage. I think he had one stoppage, and that was from a cut. To drop Lawrence Okolie, to have that amount of knockouts in his professional career, it's huge. It is genuinely huge. It's you know, it's not down to one person. It's not down to myself. It's not down to Chris solely. It's a team. You know, it's Josh Pritchard, my brother Jake, my dad, Ben Caraway, Sam Singh, all these guys that have helped on this journey to create 1 or 2 extra percent continually. That is what makes a champion. You know, people are going to obviously try and glorify me as a coach, you know, to say, oh, you came up with some magnificent game plan, but he has an unbelievable will to win. He's got an unbelievable chin. He's calm, and yeah, he did it, mate.
Can we delve into that game plan a little bit more in terms of how much you feel of it was executed to have the success tonight?
Yeah, I thought Lawrence was going to maintain distance a little bit more early on. He was falling in from quite early on. I feel like, no disrespect or discredit to Sugar Hill, I just don't know if they've had the right amount of time. Maybe the back-to-back camp might have actually helped him, but you know, David Light is I hope for his own sake he's okay and he's recovering well. But he's not the same fighter that Chris Billam-Smith is. You know, he's not the most attacking fighter. He sort of sits back, and even with that, Lawrence made it awkward work. So for us, I knew that, you know, if the Lawrence Okolie that boxed David Light came into the fight, I think, you know, I was very, very confident that we were going to win the fight. I felt like he was a bit better than he was that other night. It was a lot more, a lot quicker, but sorry, very predictable.
One specifically terrible scorecard, it seemed, consensus from the boxing public. Were you at any point concerned when those scorecards were read out that you might not get the decision here, given Chris's success?
No, because I knew that there was the potential for a judge to see it that way. Okay. Not that way, not anywhere near as close as that. I was disappointed that it was that close, but I thought it could have been a bit closer. Sorry, I feel like I just swallowed a bloody hairball. But yeah, for it to be close, maybe like 114, 112 or something, but it was hard to keep up with a tally on the deductions and the knockdowns. But you know, Chris was also too patient in there. He was far too patient. He was, you know, in rounds after the 4th, I feel like that he took the 5th. He was really relaxed there, but he gave away that round and then started to come on strong a little bit, but then gave away another few rounds. And it was like, you know, you have to be consistent here. But as we alluded to in the press conference, he hasn't been well. And, you know, I mean, myself as a manager and a coach, you know, it was my forefront that his health and safety was there. But we spoke to enough doctors, our doctors that I can really rely on, that said, listen, you know, his body's absorbing nutrients. We would be worried if he was excreting too much, but it's not. It's the salts will be in his body, and he'll be healthy. So He came in, as he said, a bit lighter than normal, so maybe he didn't have that buoyancy. Genuinely believe that Chris Billam-Smith that was performing in camp would have stopped him tonight. But he was a little bit lacklustre at times.
In the aftermath of defeats, especially for someone like Lawrence Okolie, who's seen as consensus #1 in the Cruiserweight division, two things will happen from the boxing public. They'll say, one, the blueprint was written on how to beat Lawrence Okolie, or two, he wasn't as good as he was made out to be in the first place. How much of those two statements are true or false?
He's a very good fighter. Don't get that wrong. Very good fighter, very effective. I think his best days are at heavyweight, if you ask me. He's a big lump. He's not like a Richard Riakporhe that's naturally very lean and doesn't probably blow up that much. He's a little bit more fleshy and puts weight on quite easily. So listen to your body, But Lawrence has to look into why he falls into those fights. That's the most important thing. Chris has to recover, and Lawrence has to look into why that happens, and it continually happens. He's his own worst enemy. He knows that, but address it. And address it, in my opinion, at a slightly lower level. Or at a slightly lower level at heavyweight, whilst they'll be a little bit slower and you get your shots off.
A couple of final things for me. When Chris dropped to his knees and he was crying, I turned my attention to you. You remained calm, cool, collected, but were you close to maybe shedding a few tears? Yeah, was that the closest you ever been in the ring to shedding a few tears?
I've shed a few tears a few times in the ring. I'm quite an emotional bloke, and I definitely did there. When I hugged Chris's mum afterwards, I started bawling because I know my dad had a stroke a few years ago. Carol had a stroke a few years after that. She's on her second bout of breast cancer. And everyone didn't really think that Chris was ever going to do this. And she thanked me, and she also was just crying her eyes out. So yeah, that's what got me emotional, to be honest. And obviously hearing him get so upset there, I know how cancer is close to my heart. So yeah, it's an emotional night. And I said to him in the week, like me and my brother Jake, we were saying, like, Chris, you may never get this again. This is your homecoming. This is not, this is you fighting for a world title. Like, win, lose or draw, mate. Like, enjoy this moment, because this is what it's all about. And I hope that we can get it again, something like this down here again. But yeah, it's so special, and I think it's going to be extremely hard to top. He's such a top lad as well. He's just such a good bloke. We've been painted with a brush for a few years. It's a very small industry, this boxing world, and it's controlled by a few people that try and create a narrative against us. And he's always stayed strong. And certain people have gone after all of our talent and nicked them. They never even batted an eyelid at Chris, because they didn't think he was going to be that good, and he's now won a world title. So,
rest, recuperation, rematch potentially on the horizon for Chris Billam-Smith. Riakporhe? Anyone else who you'd like to see Chris mix it up with next?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Lawrence has the rematch clause as an option. That could potentially be the next fight. But Chris has a bad eye. Lawrence, as I said, I think he should address what's going on. Richard Riakporhe, of course, it's there as an option, but it's like, I like Richard. I think he's a good guy, but he's never, he wanted the Ilingu Mukabu fight because it was the easiest fight, right? And he really tried to line up that WBC belt. He didn't want to box Billam-Smith. He didn't want to box Okolie. And he potentially looked at Opetaia, but Chris was in line to box Opetaia. Chris was in line to box Billam-Smith. Richard beat him. Why isn't Richard pushing for that as the number one? Why is he sitting back? Why hasn't he fought for a world title yet? He's let Chris go out there and win it, and now he obviously wants to try and ride off of that win. I think if Chris's eye is as bad as it is, why don't Lawrence Okolie box Richard Riakporhe and then we'll fight the winner? And that's as I said, look, no disrespect for either of those guys. Got a lot of respect for both of them. I joked about boxing CANELO, but honestly, he I mean, he genuinely wanted to go up and box Alinga Makabu to win a world title at the WBC Cruiserweight title. CBS is there. We'll go to Vegas. We're not going to Guadalajara. I used to box with John Ryder. We both won the novices together. I thought, fuck that, I'm not going to do it. I wouldn't let him go out there and box in Guadalajara. We'll get shot.
Scotney next.
Scotty's our next world champion. 2 weeks time.
We were there, Shane. Thanks for being to Seconds Out, sir. Much appreciated.